Welcome to Old Rare Files. If you enjoyed the content, please subscribe, become a member, and like our content.
Look at what is left. A valley filled with fallen men. This is the Aleutian Islands, 1943. The Battle of Attu. American forces landed expecting a short campaign. What they found instead was an enemy that did not surrender. Japanese soldiers launched one of the largest banzai charges of the entire Pacific War rather than be captured. Nearly the entire Japanese garrison was killed, and so were hundreds of Americans, in a place most people cannot find on a map. Now look at this one. More bodies, more ground covered. The scale of this image is different from the one before it. This is not one death or 10. This is what a full engagement looks like when it is over. World War II killed an estimated 70 million people, military and civilian, soldier and child. The number is so large it stops meaning anything until you see a photograph like this one. There are no weapons here, no explosions, just bodies on the ground. This is the part of war that does not make it into the victory parades. Fallen soldiers on a battlefield, left where they fell in the immediate aftermath of combat. Images like this one were censored for years. The American government did not want the public to see what the war actually looked like. They were afraid people would stop supporting it. They buried them fast. No coffins, no ceremony. Just men with shovels and a hole in the ground. This is World War II. The bodies were enemy soldiers fallen the day before, but sometimes they were their own. Mass graves like this one were dug across Europe and the Pacific, not because the men were forgotten, because there were simply too many of them, and the war was not done yet. They did not die in a battle. They died in a trench. Look at the ground, churned mud, barbed wire. Bodies half submerged in a slope that was fought over so many times, it no longer looks like Earth. This is World War I, the Western Front, where men lived underground and died above it, where a single week of fighting could move the front line by less than a mile and cost tens of thousands of lives to do it. They are carrying a man who cannot walk. Maybe he is wounded, maybe he is already gone. The stretcher bearers in World War I operated in the most dangerous place on the battlefield. They moved through no man's land under fire, carrying men who could not carry themselves. Many of them were killed doing it. This image is from the 1910s. The men in it look exhausted in a way that sleep cannot fix. These are not fireworks. These are ballistic missiles, Soviet missiles, lined up in a desert during the Cold War, on display for civilians and military alike. The message is not subtle. The message is power. During the Cold War, both the United States and the Soviet Union built weapons capable of ending human civilization. They built them by the thousands, and then they pointed them at each other and waited to see who blinked first. They are crossing the sea, and they know what is waiting on the other side. Troops packed onto a landing craft, rifles ready, faces forward. Some of them are praying, some are quiet in a way that has no name. Coastal invasions like this one had a brutal logic. You had to get from the boat to the beach, and the beach was defended. Many of these men did not reach the sand alive. They are coming. Dozens of landing craft moving in formation toward the shore. Behind them, the larger ships wait. This is the machinery of amphibious war. The planning that went into operations like this one took months. The execution took minutes. And in those minutes, everything could fall apart. Some of the men in these boats survived. Some of them never made it past the water. The battle ended here. You can see where. Bodies remain along the path as vehicles and troops move through the area. The living are already moving toward the next thing. That is what war requires. You cannot stop to process what just happened. The enemy may be regrouping a mile ahead, so you move, and you carry what you saw with you into whatever comes next. They have everything they own in their hands. A crowd of civilians boarding a ship in the early 20th century, luggage piled high, faces forward. These are immigrants, people who decided that the life they had was not worth keeping compared to the one they imagined waiting for them somewhere else. They crossed an ocean to find out if they were right. Many of them were, some of them were not. All of them were brave. The engines are running. The bombs are loaded, and somewhere beyond the runway, the target is waiting. These crew members are making final checks before climbing into their bomber for a mission over enemy territory. Many of them had a ritual, a lucky charm, a photograph they touched before the ladder, something small and private to hold on to before the noise and the fire and the fear took over. Look at this airman. He is not flying yet, but everything about him says he is already somewhere else. The vest, the radio, the notes written on the back of his hand. Those notes are mission details he could not afford to forget and could not afford to lose on paper. This photograph was taken in 1944. In that year alone, thousands of Allied pilots were killed in action. He knew the numbers. He flew anyway. They are smiling. That is the thing about this photograph. These men know they are about to fly into danger, and they are smiling. Crew members posed beside their aircraft before missions in every theater of the war. Some of these photos were the last taken of men still alive. Families kept them for decades. Some never found out exactly where or how their son or husband died. The forest is gone. The trench has been there so long, it has become part of the landscape. A soldier walks through a combat zone so devastated that nothing living remains. Shattered trees, torn earth, empty craters. World War II destroyed ecosystems as thoroughly as it destroyed cities. In some areas of Europe and the Pacific, the land did not recover for decades. A soldier surveys the ruins of a place that used to be something else. The aircraft is grounded for now. Ground crew circles it with tools and checklists, looking for anything that could go wrong at 30,000 feet. Pre-flight preparation in World War II was meticulous because it had to be. A missed inspection could mean an engine failure over enemy territory. A loose component could mean the difference between coming home and not. These men are not glamorous, they are essential. The gun is hidden under branches. That is the point. Enemy aircraft cannot see it from the air. Enemy spotters cannot see it from the ridge. A camouflaged artillery position in World War II required patience, skill, and materials the soldiers often had to find themselves. Cut branches, netting, mud, anything to make the gun invisible, because a visible gun is a dead crew waiting to happen. The airfield is buried in snow, and the aircraft are still there, lined up, waiting. Somewhere in a mountainous region during World War II, a squadron is grounded by weather that does not care about military schedules. Flying in winter conditions was its own kind of combat. Ice on the wings, zero visibility, engines that froze on the ground and failed in the air, and still, when the weather cleared, they flew. Everything is being unloaded at once. Crates, weapons, fuel, men, a large-scale supply operation in a mountainous coastal region during World War II. The volume of material visible in this image represents months of planning and thousands of miles of ocean travel. Wars are won with logistics as much as with courage. The men who carried the boxes were fighting too, just a different kind of fight. There is no bridge. There is no engineer support. There is a raft, some rope, and men who need to be somewhere else before dark. Improvised river crossings during World War II were common in terrain where infrastructure had been destroyed or simply never existed. You built what you needed from whatever was there. Speed mattered. The enemy was not going to wait. The river has to be crossed. There is no bridge, so these soldiers are paddling. An inflatable boat in the middle of a river during wartime, with the far bank uncertain and everything that could go wrong still ahead of them. Amphibious training like this prepared men for river crossings, coastal landings, and swamp operations. The technique was the same everywhere. Get to the other side, whatever it takes. Hands in the air. Faces showing something that is hard to name. These are prisoners of war being escorted after surrender. The photograph appears to be from the American Civil War. Men who had been enemies hours before are now walking in a line, guarded by men they had been trying to kill. The rules of war said they would be treated humanely. The reality depended entirely on who was doing the guarding. The mountains behind them are massive. The beach in front of them is not. Somewhere in the Aleutian Islands, at the edge of American territory, soldiers and supplies are being unloaded from Navy vessels onto a remote shore. Most Americans have never heard of the Aleutian Campaign, but it was real. Japanese forces occupied American soil, and it took 2 brutal years to take it back. The road is rough and the vehicles are moving fast. In the Aleutian Islands, there were no good roads. These were built by engineers who arrived weeks before the trucks did. Temporary structures lined the background. Everything here was built to last just long enough. No one expected to stay. The campaign was supposed to be over by now. It was not. This island is trying to kill everyone on it. Volcanic peaks, snow, fog so thick you cannot see 50 feet ahead. These are the Aleutian Islands, Alaska. And this is why the campaign there was so brutal. The terrain was not just inconvenient, it was lethal. Frostbite, exposure, and volcanic gas killed soldiers who had survived the fighting. The land itself was the enemy. The shelters are buried under a foot of snow. The men inside are trying to stay warm enough to function. Somewhere on the front, winter has become the mission itself. American soldiers in World War II fought in conditions that ranged from tropical jungle heat to Arctic cold. The men in this photograph are dealing with the cold. No heated barracks, no central command, just snow, wind, and each other. The mud is winning. Look at that Jeep, axle deep in a road that stopped being a road weeks ago. The driver is not panicking. He has been here before. In World War II, mud was a strategic factor. Armies planned around it. Generals lost battles because of it. Supply lines collapsed. Offensives stalled. And men like this one spent their days fighting the ground before they ever fought the enemy. Someone is reading. That is remarkable. These Allied soldiers, crowded onto a military vessel before a major operation, are reading documents and letters and whatever else they brought. In the hours before a landing, men did strange, ordinary things. They wrote letters home, they played cards, they read. And then the order came and ordinary life became something they would spend the rest of their lives trying to find their way back to. They are looking at a map, or orders, or both. A pause in a village street, soldiers bend over documents, figuring out what happens in the next hour. In World War II, this kind of moment happened 1,000 times a day in 1,000 different places. Strategy meeting reality. The map saying one thing, the street outside saying something else entirely. Something does not look right. One soldier is pointing, the other is studying the ground. This is the moment before a decision, a rural road, an unexpected sign, a detail that might mean nothing or might mean everything. In combat, the difference between a routine inspection and a life-or-death discovery was sometimes a single person who stopped and looked more carefully than anyone else. The gun weighs over a ton. It takes a crew of 6 to move it, 10 to fire it correctly. In open terrain during World War II, field artillery like this was the loudest thing most soldiers had ever heard. Permanent hearing damage was common, so was death. Artillery caused more casualties in World War II than any other weapon. This crew knew that. They set up the gun and got to work. He is holding the weapon correctly. His stance is right. The training is working. This soldier with a submachine gun is practicing the movements that might save his life. In close combat, there is no time to remember what to do. The body has to already know. That is what training does. It puts the knowledge somewhere below thinking, somewhere that works even when the mind is white with fear. These men are not marching yet. They are waiting. And waiting in war is its own kind of suffering. Large formations like this one gathered before major operations. Before the order came, before the artillery began, some of these soldiers would be dead within 48 hours. Standing in a field in the sun, they did not know which ones. Look at this soldier. He has a radio in his hands and a war in his ear. Inside that vehicle, in the middle of a battle zone, a voice from miles away is telling him what to do next. Portable radio communication changed everything in World War II. Before it, commanders were blind. Generals made decisions based on information that was already hours old. The radio made war faster, deadlier, and more coordinated than anything that had come before. The message has to get through. Everything depends on it. This soldier is hunched over a radio in an open field with no cover and a war going on around him. Coordinates, troop positions, enemy movements, one wrong transmission, one missed signal, and the men advancing on the other side had no idea what they were walking into. Communication failures in World War II did not just cost battles, they cost lives by the thousands. They are practicing now so they do not hesitate later. A group of soldiers in an open field, learning how their weapons work, what to do when it jams, how to reload under fire, how to aim when your hands are shaking. Training in World War II was constant and relentless. The men who survived long enough to become veterans said the training saved their lives. The ones who did not survive long enough never had a chance to say anything. Inside the aircraft, there is no room to be afraid. There is only the gun, the water below, and the mission. This crew member is scanning for submarines, for enemy ships, for anything moving in the dark water beneath him. Maritime patrol flights in World War II were long, cold, and often deadly. Some crews flew for 12 hours without seeing anything. Others never came back. This aircraft is unlike anything flying in combat. The Northrop engineers are still figuring it out. They are adjusting, testing, measuring. The experimental aircraft program in the United States during World War II produced machines that seemed impossible. Many of them failed. Some of them changed aviation permanently. The technicians in this photograph are working on something that might win the war, or might never leave the airfield. Tents in the trees, cots, campfires. A makeshift camp that will be here today and gone next week when the orders change. This is what home looked like for millions of soldiers in World War II. No walls, no privacy, no certainty of anything, just the men around you and whatever you managed to carry. Field camps like this one were built and abandoned thousands of times across every theater of the war. They are moving in the middle of the ocean. Fuel, ammunition, food, medicine, engine parts. Everything an army needs to keep fighting. These crew members are doing the work that most people never saw in the newsreels. Without ships like this one, the front lines would have collapsed in weeks. The men who carried supplies were not heroes in the traditional sense, but the men on the front lines could not survive without them. The road is empty now. The trucks are gone. What is left is wreckage. Burned out vehicles, blown tires, torn metal. This is what a retreating army leaves behind, or an advancing one. In World War II, roads became graveyards for machines, whole columns of vehicles destroyed in minutes by airstrikes or artillery. The men inside did not always get out in time. The factory is running day and night. Inside, a family works beside strangers they met 3 weeks ago. They are processing food to feed soldiers they will never meet on fronts they cannot imagine. American industrial production in World War II was staggering. The factories did not just make weapons, they made food, clothing, fuel, medicine, everything, and they were run by people who had never worked in a factory before the war started. Nothing moves here anymore. That is what strikes you first. This is Utah, early 20th century. Vast, dry, still. A few structures in the distance that look almost accidental. People lived here, in a landscape that seems designed to keep people out. They planted crops in soil that barely cooperated. They built homes miles from their nearest neighbor, and they stayed, because this was their place. They are building something that will outlast everyone in this photograph. A massive concrete structure in the early 20th century. A dam, a dock. Something large enough that it took hundreds of workers and years to complete. The men in the image are small against it. That was often the point, to build something larger than any single person, something that proved what collective human effort could accomplish.